This passage is about two things. One is called role strain, one is called time poverty. It involves the problems women face in terms of in carrying out their designated roles, whether in private or in professional life, and also the time poverty, the problems they face in time, and how that affects their mental health. All right, let's quickly have a recap of the passage before we look at the questions. In countries around the world, women do more unpaid work, housework, child and elder care, and the mental load of managing a family than men. So, women do household work and other things more than men. New research suggests that it takes a health toll on many of them. The more of this labor women do, the more their mental health, the worse their mental health, found a meta analysis of 19 studies covering 70,310 people globally, published this month in the Lancet Public Health. It's not unpaid labor itself. So basically, it says that the extra work that women do a lot more work than men, and this takes a toll on their mental health. It's not unpaid labor itself. It's not that they're not being paid for all this extra work. That by itself is not problematic, the research has found. Then what's the problem? It's all the baggage around it. There are other problems associated with it. What is that? Conflicts with someone's other responsibilities like paid work and whatever it's what someone and whether it's what someone wants to be doing. The biggest problem is not the work by itself, not the unpaid labor by itself, but how this unpaid labor is affecting paid work. That is causing problems. Or how this unpaid labor affects what one really wants in life, whether one really wants to do this unpaid work. That is the problem. That is the cause of the mental issues. Social scientists first named these issues more than half a century ago, and they've only become more acute since then as more women have taken on paid work. More and more women are entering the workforce. Half a century ago, these problems were highlighted by social scientists, were named by social scientists, but these problems have worsened because more and more women are joining the workforce and taking up paid work. Role strain, a term coined in 1960 by the sociologist William Good, describes what happens when someone's multiple roles interfere with their performance in others. So you're doing multiple roles. Your performance in some roles interferes with your performance in others. For example, he is given when long hours of unpaid domestic work makes people less able to do their paid work or vice versa. So when do you feel role strain? When you have multiple roles, performance of one role is affecting the performance of another role. For example, if you have a lot of housework and it's affecting how you do your office or paid work, or the other way around, you have a lot of paid you spend a lot of time and energy on your paid work and you neglect your unpaid work. So how one role is affecting the other, that is called, one role is affecting the performance of another, that's called role strain. Time poverty, a term social scientists use to describe not having enough time to do work or leisure activities, particularly affects women with caregiving demands and people with inflexible low paid jobs. People don't have enough time. That's time poverty. This affects women when they have caregiving jobs or when they have inflexible low paid jobs. Flexibility in time is not there. They have to go from 9 to 6 or whatever to work. Then they feel lack of time to do what? Work or other leisure activities. Time poverty contributes to decline in mental health, research shows, and makes it harder to do things that improve health, like exercising, sleeping, or nurturing friendships. What does time poverty do? It doesn't give you time to look after your health, like exercising or sleeping or nurturing friendships. One study found that while opposite sex couples are increasingly likely to share responsibility for paid and unpaid work, men spend significantly more leisure time on weekends while women do more household. So now, opposite sex marriages, couples are increasingly likely to share responsibilities. Still, what is found? In weekends, during weekends, men have more leisure time than women. Women tend to do more work during the weekends. In some cases, parents who forego paid work to care for children have been found to be happier about their unpaid labor, but not always. So sometimes when parents have given up jobs to take care of their children, they have been happy, but not always. This is only in some cases. It depends on whether that aligned with what they wanted to do, or if they felt they had little choice about it. So let's say there is this mother who gave up her job to take care of her child. She'll be happier if that's all something she always wanted to do. Yeah, once the child is there, I'll not work anymore. But if she felt that there's no other way, I had to give up my job to take care of my child, but she was forced to give up her job to take care of the child, then didn't make her happy. So it depended whether it was what that person really wanted to do, or whether they didn't have any choice. So it's not always that when somebody has given up a paid job to look after, to do some unpaid work, has been happy. Not always, sometimes. It's not clear cut that doing a larger amount or greater share of unpaid domestic work is negatively associated or with physical or mental health per se. It's not like that. That you do a lot of work, then you have a lot more physical or mental health problems per se. It's not like that. Mothers who have majority responsibility for those tasks but are also very conventional in their gender roles are okay with that responsibility. So if a person has conventional ideas about the gender roles, okay, I have to do the housework, I have to do a majority of the housework. If somebody has accepted that and is okay with it, they don't face mental problems. But women who believe more in egalitarianism, having those responsibility leads to poorer mental health. In a traditional setup, women were expected to do household chores. Women were expected to have spend more time in childcare. And if a woman had a traditional mindset and she's okay, that wouldn't have mental issues, that wouldn't give rise to mental issues. But women who had more egalitarian ideas, both of us are in this marriage, both of us should take care of the child equally, both of us should share the household chores equally. She has such ideas and they don't work, she ends up doing more work, then there have been mental health issues. That's what he says. Part of that is discordant identities. I want to be this person, but I'm not. Tellingly, while same-sex couples tend to split primary responsibility for work and family once they have children, they tend to be happier with the division. So he's saying when you have same-sex couples, they are happy with their division of work once they have children. What does author say? Research has found that this is because there is more often a conversation about who will do what rather than an assumption based on gender. So in traditional opposite sex marriages, there is the traditional gender role that is there. Woman stays at home, woman does the household chores, woman looks after the children. Same sex couples, on the other hand, when they have children, they divide the responsibility equally, and that is not determined by gender role. Therefore, they tend to be happier. That's what research says. The Lancet researchers said drawing definitive conclusions from the 19 studies was different, that more research would be welcome. They did 19 studies, 70,000 people, but you still can't draw definitive conclusions. This is it. You can't say that. This is not the final word. This is not the definitive conclusion from the research. We need to do more research. One hole in the academic research, which some newer studies are beginning to address, is a more detailed look at how different types of chores and responsibilities affect people. One detail that has to be taken care of is how do different responsibilities affect people. But what seems clear, the research said, is that when men do more unpaid work, it eases the impact on women. One thing is for sure, when men do more of the unpaid work, take a share in the household responsibilities, it does have an impact on women. This is the summary of the passage. Based on the passage, all of the following are not examples of role strain except Find an example of role strain. What is a role strain? Where there is a conflict between different roles that a person plays. So if a person is doing two roles, if there's a conflict between paid and unpaid, then performance of one role affects the performance of the other, then the person uh, experiences role strain, right? So let's look at that. A person who works long hours at their job and is also a secondary caregiver for their parents, leading them to feel stressed. So in A, long hours at their job, this is the paid work, paid role. Caregiver for their family, unpaid role. There is a conflict between the two roles and he feels strain. So, this is a case of role strain. That will be our answer. But let's look at B, C, and D and see why they are not. A person who takes on a second job to make ends meet but finds it difficult to juggle the two. Same role, paid job, two paid jobs he has taken. That's not a role strain. Role strain is when there is a conflict between paid and unpaid or vice versa. That's what the passage has said. So there's no conflict here. Both are paid roles. A person who's a workaholic works long hours and doesn't spend enough time with their children. There's only one role here. He does not give time. That's his choice. There's no conflict between role and unpaid. Persons who juggles multiple job responsibilities. Well, he's juggling multiple responsibilities. Passage doesn't say anything about whether he's able to do it successfully and happily or not. There's nothing mentioned about it. So it cannot be that. Therefore, the only conflict that we see between paid and unpaid work is in 1. So A is our answer. Based on the passage, which of the following measures is the author most likely to support to decrease the problem of time poverty? What is time poverty? Finding lack of time to pursue other activities. Why is this? Because of gender roles and because of work policies, right? So how would you decrease it? By in some way addressing the gender role problems or addressing the work policies or both, right? Let's look at the options. Encouraging women to reduce their unpaid domestic labor by hiring domestic help. This may help her, but will not help her at work. Even if she has less work at home, she'll still have some work at home, but she'll still have a lot at office. And if the work policies do not help, then it doesn't. So this is half the answer. This is not the full solution. Just by decreasing unpaid work, you are not helping time poverty for the women. She still may not be able to pursue leisure activities. She still may not be able to pursue everything that she wants to do at work if her work hours are inflexible, if her work pressure is more. Supporting more flexible work arrangements. This will help the work policies. Paid parental leave. This will help on both fronts. So this is what the author is likely to agree with. Supporting men in prioritizing unpaid domestic work over their paid work. No, this will create another problem. It will create a time poverty in men. It will create a role strain in men, domestic versus not time poverty, role strain in men. Additional problem. Encouraging couples to become parents when they have flexible, high paid jobs will not, if they don't divide their work properly, then that's not going to help the woman at all. Time poverty. Therefore, B is our best answer. Which of the following, if true, would cast the most doubt on the following paragraph? What is the following paragraph? Tellingly, while same-sex couples tend to split primary responsibility for work and family once they have children, they tend to be happier with the division. Research has found that it's because there is more often a conversation about who will do what rather than an assumption based on gender. So what is it saying? Same-sex couples are happier. Why are they happier? Because they have a conversation. They have a conversation on work and responsibility. Who will do which work? Who will be responsible for what? Right? And this division of labor is based on a conversation, an open discussion, rather than a gender role like that with opposite sex couples. This is what he says. Which one will weaken it most? When you either say that same sex couples don't have that conversation, or when you say that that conversation is not really implemented in terms of work. Something like that. Let's see. Same sex couples still face societal pressure to conform to gender roles and may not be able to fully reject them. They may, on the house front, they may have societal pressure, but in the house, they may still do as they want. So, how does societal pressure work? They are happier because they have understanding between themselves on who will do what. So, societal pressure is not a factor. Even if there's societal pressure, the happiness on the house front is not going to get affected. This doesn't really weaken the author's claim. They have a conversation on who will do what, not based on the gender role. So, what society expects is irrelevant. Even in same-sex couples, one partner may end up doing more unpaid labor due to individual preferences and skill sets. That is individual preference. They'll still be happy. See, he said dividing work and responsibility, but he didn't say equally. If somebody wants to do more or willingly does more, it will still not affect their happiness. The main argument is they are happier because the division of work and responsibility is based on a conversation and an open discussion rather than one on gender roles. So if in that conversation A says, I will do more work, I will do A, B and C, I love doing it, that doesn't in any way weaken the author's argument that the conversation they decide who will do what. Maybe one does more, maybe one does less, right? It doesn't really matter. Studies have found that some same-sex couples to be happier with the division of unpaid labor. Studies have found that same-sex couples to be happier with the division of unpaid labor are too small and not representative of the larger population. True, but at least those few are happy. Studies have found same-sex couples to be happier with the division are too small. There are very few who are happy with the division of labor and they're not representative of the larger population. Maybe. But the author's claim is this division is based on conversation and therefore leads to happiness. This division is not based on gender role, therefore based on happiness, is still not weakened. What is weakened? When you attack the conversation, open discussion leads to happiness argument of the author. That is option D. The conversation about dividing unpaid labor in same-sex couples may not be open and honest, leads to resentment and dissatisfaction rather than happiness. This challenges the author's argument the most. Author is saying, you know what? In traditional opposite sex families, marriages, the division of unpaid labor is based on gender role. In same-sex marriages are happier because this division of unpaid labor is based on an open discussion. Who will do what, right? So if you say that open discussion, which you are saying is the root cause of all the happiness, if you say that that discussion is not open, not honest, and therefore it doesn't result in happiness but really results in unhappiness, if that is true, because the option is if true, you have to assume these conditions. If that is true, then the author's argument falls flat on its face. That same-sex couples are happier because of the conversation. You say, no, that conversation that your entire argument is based on the conversation. Let me tell you that conversation is not honest. That conversation doesn't really result in an open discussion and therefore it results in resentment and bitterness, and that weakens the author's argument most. So the correct answer is D. Which of the following is not true according to the passage? So 3 options will be correct, 1 isn't. Let's look at it. Women who do more unpaid labor have worse mental health. The negative impact of unpaid labor on mental health is due to conflicts with other responsibilities. This is definitely true. It tells on your mental health. People who forego paid work to care for their children are happier with their unpaid labor. Always? Not always. Only sometimes. Only those women who've always wanted to do it, not those who feel they've been forced to give up their unpaid job. So this is not true. All right. So the answer is C.